I call the Honourable Minister for Social Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's commonly said that this House is the crucible of Australian democracy, a place where public policy is tested and refined before being put into practical effect. It's a place that's also adversarial by definition, a place where contending ideas and political philosophies jostle for dominance and dominion. And it's here at these dispatch boxes, in the front line of that battle for ideas, where from time to time appears an issue that transcends the hurly-burly and the cut and thrust of day-to-day political discourse. Madam Speaker, this is precisely such an occasion. We're here today to mark the passing of Edward Gough Whitlam, a man whose eminence in and service to our nation's political life is beyond dispute. It's not that I agreed with all, or perhaps even most, of what Gough Whitlam's political philosophy was about, but that disagreement notwithstanding, there's no denying that Gough Whitlam dominated the public policy arena of his day. When Gough assumed the role of Federal Labor leader in 1967, he assumed the helm of a political party that was at its lowest ebb. In opposition since 1949, Labor had been riven by disunion and demoralised by serial failures at the ballot box. Yet over the space of just 4 short years, he was able to reorganise the Australian Labor Party, leading a revivified and reinvigorated party to victory in 1972. He adopted a strategy designed to expand Labor's appeal beyond the traditional blue-collar vote, taking deliberate measures to woo middle-class voters to the ranks of the ALP. He recognised the social and demographic changes of the 1960s and 70s and responded with a strategy that met a new set of public desires and public expectations. And of course, Labor's election slogan for that election reflected the political brilliance of its leader. The mantra, "Its time," was simple, direct and literally rolled off the tongue. And truth be told, we Liberals couldn't compete. By virtue of that slogan and Whitlam's immense charisma, Labor swept to power in a massive landslide. Labor's 1972 election triumph was a signal achievement in the annals of Australian politics that remains unmatched today. And Gough proved, as many speakers have said this afternoon, Madam Speaker, no less dynamic upon coming into office. He was nothing if not decisive. Constrained by the inner workings of the federal ALP caucus, he instituted the famed duopoly where, along with Deputy Leader Lance Barnard, he governed the nation for a fortnight until Labor's front bench could be chosen. He ended conscription by fiat, withdrew Australian troops from Vietnam and established a Federal Department of Aboriginal Affairs. He noted the incongruity, indeed the immorality, of a system where young men were deemed old enough to fight but were not old enough to exercise the franchise, amending the Commonwealth Electoral Act, lowering the voting age to 18 years. He was also responsible for passing legislation that extended Senate representation to the ACT and the Northern Territory. And he accomplished equally remarkable things in the policy space that's relevant to my current portfolio, social services. In fact, I think it can be fairly said that if Gough Whitlam wasn't the father of the Australian welfare state, he at least served the role of midwife. His watch as Prime Minister saw the establishment of Medibank, now known as Medicare. He engineered a massive broadening of tertiary education opportunities by implementing fee-free university studies. He oversaw an increase of the basic pension rate to 25% of average weekly earnings and the enactment of consumer protection legislation. And he introduced sole parent benefit at a time when relationship breakdown threatened to cast thousands of women and children into penury. Madam Speaker, Gough Whitlam was not a man to hasten slowly. It was pedal to the metal leader, whose motto was, it seemed, crash or crash through. but at times the sheer ambition of his agenda perhaps caused him to overreach. At times his impatient assertiveness could lead him astray, and ultimately it was this crash or crash-through ethos that led to the latter outcome. Yet, even at that moment of the dismissal, at the nadir of his political fortunes, Gough Whitlam's sheer brilliance as a communicator shone through, etching itself into our national psyche and our national history. Well may we say God save the Queen, because no one can save the Governor-General. It was sheer genius. Thus, one doesn't have to be in agreement with Gough Whitlam's political worldview to recognise the immensity of his role in our politics and our impact on national life, nor to mention, as many others have said this afternoon, his generosity or wit. I recall speaking to him at one occasion, I think it was the centenary of the Federation at the Victorian Parliament, when we all gathered, and he asked me about my background, which I explained, to which he replied, "Well, comrade, had I come along earlier, you'd be on our side." I would like to join others in conveying my sincerest condolences to his children, Tony, Nicholas, Stephen and Catherine. Vale Edward Gough Whitlam, you were a colossus who walked amongst us. The world will be a less interesting and less colourful place for your passing. You were a parliamentarian and a Prime Minister, but most of all, you were a public servant and a patriot. May you rest in peace.